If you want to take more listings and get more buyers to say yes, then practice total and complete acceptance of all people in all situations, including yourself. And when they see that you appreciate who they are, they'll be much more collaborative and responsive to what you're saying. And when you do that, you will go into a resistance-free state. People will see that you appreciate who they are.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the Light It Up podcast. If you're new to this channel and you want to know everything there is about making money in real estate, selling, sales skills, building your business, or investing, then subscribe below, tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know what makes our great guests so successful.
Let's talk about adding leverage. So we've been getting a lot of calls of people asking us how we've hired virtual assistants to scale and leverage our business. So we've opened up our playbook to all of you. If you're looking to add leverage in your business, whether it's administrative support, ISA, outbound callers, go to addleverage.com and they'll be there to help you staffing your team.
All right, today we have with us Matthew Ferry for round two. Matthew, thank you so much for being here.
Round two, ladies and gentlemen. Hi.
And one thing to acknowledge is that Matthew's book, Creating Sales Velocity, Awaken Your Power to Attract Sales Effortlessly, is on its 20th year anniversary. Woo, woo.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I had no idea that book was going to make such a big difference. I sat down at the table to write it, and it took me, I don't know, maybe about 6 days. And 6 days later, I had the entire book done. And here we are, 20 years later, people are still buying it. It's still making a huge difference for people. Yeah. If you're a conscious, like a sensitive type person and you don't like to grind it out, then you love my stuff.
It's an incredible book. Well, I love the audio version. I never got the paperback. The audio, just hearing your voice and going through it, you're using also NLP on the book. As you're listening to this, you're becoming a more conscious realtor. I'm like, yes, I am. So it's an amazing recording that you listen to over and over again, and it's had an impact on me, and it's had an impact on a lot of listeners. By the way, if you didn't see our last episode with Matthew, you go back. We were going over Matthew's last book, or latest book, The Quiet Mind, Epic Life. So check that out. We're gonna put that on the screen right there. And our last episode was so awesome that people kept raving about it and had questions. And I asked a group to give me a number of questions that they'd like to ask you. And that's
which honestly makes our life that much easier. Right?
Well, they're really good questions. And there was a couple of wonky ones in there, but this is gonna be, I think, pretty fun. So John, why don't you kick us off?
All right. So Matthew, one of the questions that came through is how to remain in a creative and abundant mindset.
How do you remain creative and in an abundant mindset? I think that the answer to that is you work diligently to transcend the survival mind. And the survival mind, we experience it as something that I call the drunk monkey. I think you guys know in 1991, I created this character, the drunk monkey. It's become ubiquitous throughout the real estate industry. It's really helped a lot of people a lot more at peace and overcome the negative chatter in their head. If you want to ascend into the abundance mindset, then you've got to connect with this idea that we're all one thing expressing itself with infinite variety. And that the ideas that you have, your goals, your dreams, your visions, they're not yours. They're not your goals and dreams. They're actually a part of the environment that you're in and that we're all in, and you're a part of that environment. And so the goals and dreams that you have, which both get you excited and freak you out that they aren't going to happen, both those things are actually part of the goal and the dream coming about. And so if you can surrender to this idea, I am the goal, therefore there's nothing for me to worry about. The goal is coming through me. Some version of it is gonna happen. It may not be the full thing, but I'm excited about achieving this goal, doing this many deals, taking this many listings, running this kind of business, building this team. Like those ideas are something that I am compelled to do. And if I can connect with that idea, then I'm going to find myself in a more abundant mindset and less stress and anxiety and self-doubt mindset.
Yeah. So how would you, in terms of, because someone can have the thought process of saying, okay, great, they're trying to remain in the field of not needing it, but when there's more like conflict in the industry, like for instance, what's going on now with NAR and all these things, how does someone get out of that thought process then to try to become more creative and abundant?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that there are two things to look at. One is you have to look at the worst case scenario, especially with this NAR thing. There's going to be winners and losers. And you, as the agent, could be one of the losers. And it'll actually eat you up and rob you of your ability to be in an abundant mindset if you don't wrestle the drunk monkey to the ground and force the drunk monkey to look at the potential of you being one of the losers in this new world that we're going into. The fear doesn't go away unless you take a moment to say, if this happens, here's what I'm going to do. If I find myself not being able to do deals, not being able to get commissions, the buyers are not wanting to cooperate and pay me a commission separately. Selling agents have changed their model. Zillow has figured out how to leverage this to be able to sell houses without any agents at all. Some new AI company comes into the space. They're able to do everything with the AI. I'm out of business, right? If you just go down all of those fears and you come to a place where you're like, I have no sales, now what? And then you make a plan from that, now what? All of a sudden, the drunk monkey in your head is not so crazy because you're like, okay, if the bad thing happens, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
That's one thing. The other thing that you want to do is recognize that the drunk monkey believes that it's psychic. And that it can predict the future. The only problem is the drunk monkey only predicts negative futures. That's its job.
Yeah.
So you start to say, okay, drunk monkey, I know that your job is to only predict a negative future. And I appreciate that. I honor you. I pet my head on a regular basis. Oh, drunk monkey. Oh, I know. You're so scared of all those negative futures. I'm so happy you're on board. You stop relating to the drunk monkey in your head like it is the captain of your ship. It's not. You're listening to it, but you're listening to it because it's a useful and relevant biological machine.
Survival tool.
If you were on a boat, you would want to pay attention to your sonar because you don't want to run into something that's under the water and damage your boat and sink the boat. So you would pay attention to that. But you'd also use your eyes, and you have other equipment, you have your experience, you have all the time you've been in the business, and the drunk monkey is one input. So you start to relate to the drunk monkey like a useful tool in a survival situation and a not so useful tool in a thriving situation. And if I'm an agent right now, the thing I want to get onto is offense. I want to go into a thriving mindset. I want to figure out, what are my new ways to prospect? Who are the potential customers? How can I change my language? What are the new objection handlers that I want to use? How do I build rapport with people in this time? How do I turn the interest rates into an advantage? How do I leverage my network? Like, I want to get on offense, and I can't get on offense if I'm listening to the drunk monkey. So you have to employ tactics that actually get the drunk monkey to stop talking. That's what the Rapid Enlightenment Process is all about. That's what I do. That's my job.
Yeah. There's so much.
So it's not shutting it out, the drunk monkey, or trying to block it out, but it's realizing that it's a tool
for survival, not for thriving.
Right.
Yeah. And the good part is that we go into this in creating sales velocity, which we'll go into later. Because I'll just say it now because it's like I'm dying to.
Relevant, yeah.
It's taking responsibility and when you're able to take responsibility, you're able to take control, because the blame, shame, and guilt is what's going to make you go crazy and not make you feel like you have the power to actually change your position and go on offense, like you said.
And if you can celebrate blame, shame, and guilt as incredibly effective drivers of action. So if you can be in blame, shame, and guilt, feel that negativity. Feel that like you're coming in the morning and you know you have an intention, you're going to do 2 hours of prospecting, and you're an hour into it and you are still screwing around. And the guilt and the shame and the self-loathing is kicking up. Like, in that moment, you want to go like, you know what, drunk monkey? Good on you. You're right. I made a promise to myself and I'm breaking it right now. And I really appreciate that you are using all of your tools to beat me up and make me feel bad. And so I'm going to get on the phone and I'm going to just start doing this. If the moment you accept and honor and appreciate the drunk monkey is the moment it no longer has any power over you. It's so interesting how fast you can get yourself back into a groove again just by honoring, appreciating, and accepting.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right.
It's an interesting twist, because at first my mind goes to finding a way to coexist with the drunk monkey, but it's not even coexisting. It's honoring and just knowing that no matter what, it's going to be there.
Yeah. Next question. This came from Richard Berman out of Nevada. What would be something you would do differently if you had to start all over?
I think that the first thing that I would do is give myself permission to blue sky. And I would step back and say, like, these are the conditions that I have in my life. So it's like, I have this mortgage and I have a car payment and I have these kids and I have all these bills. Like, those are the conditions. If I was going to live my best life in real estate and I was going to do something that I was inspired to do on a regular basis, how would I do it? So I would give myself permission to step way back and ask myself a different set of questions. And I will say that that is incredibly difficult to do if I have the hidden motive running like illogical rules. So illogical rules are hidden motives. You want to think about it in this way. So in my methodology, Rapid Enlightenment Process, what you do is you have 2 awareness tactics and then you have 2 active ingredients. And so you become aware of the 12 unconscious reflexes of the drunk monkey. You become aware of the hidden motives to survive. Then you connect with enlightened perspectives and you use recontextualization, which is essentially enlightened perspectives on the fly, like invented ones.
Okay.
But awareness makes you flexible. That reveals new options, and options give you power. I call that the game changer process. If I'm going to start fresh, I'm going to make sure that I'm not getting burdened by illogical rules. Illogical rules that's a hidden motive. And so I might have a rule that says, like, in order to be successful, you have to suffer. In order to be successful, you have to be disciplined. In order to be successful, you have to get up at 7 in the morning. You have to do your workout. You have to follow the thing. You have to follow this schedule all day. Like, if I was going to be successful and I followed the rules that everybody else followed, I personally would die. My dad so many times would say to me, if I could just get you to work 40 hours a week, we would be so much more successful. And I was like, Dad, I really want to.
Yeah.
But 20 to 30 hours a week is what seems to work for me.
Yeah.
And I am the top sales guy by a lot. I had to find my own way, find my own path. I had to be in real estate sales training, not having ever sold real estate before.
Yeah.
And do it with authenticity.
Sure.
And that was because I was able to transcend these illogical rules.
Yeah.
And the illogical rules basically told me, like, you have to do it this way and be like this kind of person and make sure you're like, all these successful people, they do A, B, C, D, E. Well, I will tell you right now, if I'm starting all over, I'm going to do kind of what I do now, which is I'm going to look at what everybody else does and I'm going to do the exact opposite just for fun, just to see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a client for a long time. He was a young guy in Vegas. And he's like, Matthew, I don't get back from the clubs until like 3 a.m. How am I going to get up at 6 a.m. to do all this stuff? And I'm like, yo, bro, that's BS. No, we're not doing that. If we look at your deal flow, we can see that your deal flow is actually coming from these people that you're meeting in the clubs. You're 23 years old. You should be partying your face off.
My coach told me to be here.
Go with it. Go with what's happening. Ride your horse in the direction it's going.
Yeah.
And so ultimately we changed his schedule. He didn't start his morning routine until noon every day. And his morning routine was like noon to 1 was this, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. And then he capped off his day at like 7 or 8 at night and then took a nap and then got up and then went clubbing. For him, that equaled 50 deals a year.
Wow.
So if I'm starting over, I'm following something that some advice that my father was given by Earl Nightingale. And my father said, Earl, come on, just like, what is the secret to being really, really successful? And Earl looked right at him and said, just look at what everybody else does and do the exact opposite. And in our family, we started to call that the 180-degree theory. And I would just go 180 degrees. Look, my brother and my father have invented some incredible systems. And it is my profound pleasure in breaking those systems and having it succeed anyway. That won't work for everybody, right? Like I would follow if I'm not a creative person, I would follow my father and my brother's systems, period.
Yeah.
But as a creative person, as a sensitive person, as someone who likes to do things different and interesting, I want to be in a flowing state. I like to look at what works. I like to master it. And then I like to break it.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So here's our third question for you. What was something you went through that was incredibly difficult that made you almost want to quit?
Well, that's a really good question. That was 2006, actually. So I went to Tibet to meditate, and my mind went completely quiet. And when I got home, nothing made sense anymore. I was in the sales training business teaching NLP, but I knew that there was a different way, there was a different gear. There was a way in which you could make money that was more about ease and flow and peace and joy and just like getting into this like flowing state. And I was experiencing it. The first year that my mind went quiet, I had a 5.5 times multiple on my income.
Wow.
Because I could see things differently. And I stopped doing things out of guilt and obligation. That was the painful part. So the painful part was my life was guilt and obligation. It was all about keeping up with the Joneses, trying to look good, trying to be better than people, trying to show people that I was good enough, hiding my insecurities, hiding that I didn't feel like I was good enough, that I wasn't smart enough, that other people were better than me. So many of my behaviors that were born trying to pretend like I'm somebody, trying to fit in, trying to do what everybody else does. And one of the most painful things that I went through was making the transition to live authentically and to live the way that made sense to me, which ultimately I call enlightened prosperity, to be a high conscious go-getter.
Yeah.
I want to be a spiritual high conscious guy who is kind and loving and sensitive and reasonable and rational and connected. And I want to kick ass and do well.
Yeah.
And be successful. And those ideas seem to oppose each other when I first started to put them into play. And it took me a long time. It took me a good 3 years, 4 years to really sort out the system for being a high conscious guy while being a successful money-making man.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered the question, but that's what came to mind.
No, I think you definitely answered the question. I think sometimes people paint this picture in their mind that you have to act a certain way and do things a certain way and dress a certain way and behave a certain way to achieve that success.
I'm going to ask this question because I'm just skipping down so that we don't lose track of where we were. This is kind of on the same vein. So with that being said, how do you fight the temptation to compare yourself with others?
Well, I don't have to fight it anymore because I have applied the Rapid Enlightenment Process to my life and to my being. I don't know if I told you this, guys, but I've worked really diligently to make sure that the Rapid Enlightenment Process is a legitimate, replicatable, systemized way to go into a state of peace and well-being and joy and flow so you can kick ass, do well, rock it out, make a lot of money. And last year, we had the Rapid Enlightenment Process was peer-reviewed and then presented at Pepperdine University at the World Social Sciences Conference. Then it was peer-reviewed for a second time and published in the Journal for Advanced Research on Social Sciences. So when I say that I don't have that comparison any longer, I'm not saying that in a way where, it's like kind of not there. I'm saying it like it's not there at all. And it's not there at all because fear is not there anymore. Doubt is not there. Concern and worry. And if they do pop up, every once in a while I'll get like little, they'll pop up.
Yeah.
I've got a set of tools that help me to transcend the illusion of survival and put me back into a state of the present moment, free to act and to go for it and to do interesting, cool, productive, positive things. And one of the things that happens when your mind goes quiet and your fears disappear is that you start to celebrate other people. And so when you see somebody doing something well and succeeding, and maybe it's something that you would like to be doing, you actually go like, oh, like, there it is. That's the thing I'm doing. They're doing it. Oh my God, it's possible. It's available. I can do this too. How cool. We're all one thing expressing itself with infinite variety. Like I am them and they are me. I am an expression of that same thing.
Yeah.
There's different versions of it happening in the world, and that person is doing it. I can do this too. The moment I go into that state of optimism and connected, suddenly I become solution oriented. I become action oriented. I start trying to figure it out. I start looking for the plans. I try and figure out like, well, what are they doing? What's their system? How are they doing it? How does that fit with me? How can I implement something similar into my own life? Instead of like, ugh, all the business is getting taken by them. I can't believe it. What's wrong with me? I'm a loser.
Yeah.
That shuts me down. That narrows my focus. That doesn't put me into solution orientation.
Yeah.
That puts me into fight or flight and run away. That's not going to get me what I want.
Yeah. You're creating your own resistance that stops your growth at the end of the day. I want to get into this rapid alignment process.
That's a good point, because it's, when you think about it, sometimes the comparison idea, right? I tend to always give like sales examples, right?
But you use it to fuel you, though. That's a little bit different.
Well, just think about it this way, though. If someone in your marketplace does 100 transactions and they do the most amount of transactions in your market, without knowing that that is where the bar is set, you have to have some sort of idea of comparison, right? To know that somebody else accomplishes something like this, so I can too. But I think the twist that Matthew puts on it is to celebrate that fact and try to find a way to, duplicate it, right? Rather than constantly just comparing yourself and immediately go into that negative space of hating on them or saying, oh, well, those deals just fall in their lap.
Yeah, hating on them is actually an aspect of the hidden motive hatred. It's super valuable. All of us have hate inside of us, every one of us, because from a hereditary evolutionary standpoint, hate is so valuable.
Right.
It's just that it's not useful if you're trying to thrive.
Right.
I will say the general model of succeeding today is definitely based on pride, arrogance, victim, self-hatred. Like that's most people. Most people are succeeding that way. But our viewer today, like the one who's still here checking out what we're doing, they can't do it that way. There's something, maybe their nervous system, I don't know what it is. Like some of us have come in a different way. We're here and our hereditary way of operating is more towards thriving.
Yeah.
And so when we utilize our ancient software of hate and pride and, like, I'm going to beat that person or whatever that is.
Yeah.
When we utilize it, it actually shuts us down.
Yeah.
And it's not sustainable. It grinds our gears. It makes us feel like we're grinding. And we start to hate the business. We hate ourselves. We hate the business. We hate our children. We hate our family. We start hating everything. It's just like snowballs and gets momentum. And so you want to honor that is in you.
Yeah.
And when it pops up, you're like, oh, hi, how are you? And then you say, well, what am I committed to? I'm committed to really recognizing that we're all one thing expressing itself with infinite variety. And that person over there doing 150 deals a year is some expression of me. And that I'm noticing them is an example of it's possible. Roger Bannister, the 4-minute mile, when he broke it, suddenly like little kids can break the 4-minute mile now.
Yeah.
I remember way back in the day, way back when Monica Reynolds and Walter Sanford were doing 100 deals a year and nobody else was even coming close. That actually gave us all a model of what was possible. And so, sure, there were plenty of people who were using comparison.
Yeah.
And some of the people using comparison did better because of it.
Right.
But most people who are using comparison actually use the comparison as a way to make themselves wrong and impede their own action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good distinction between the two.
Well, I think of it as, there's people doing that level of business early on, like you said, and somebody can go to a Mike Ferry event or a Matthew Ferry event and find ways to collaborate with people and duplicate what they're doing and try to improve what they're already doing to get to those numbers. And then there's always a lot more people, of course, who are, just saying, oh, whatever you're doing in that room is just, you're only cold calling or you're only prospecting or you're.
It's never one thing.
Yeah.
It's always multi-layered and multi-dimensional, not multi-dimensional like woo-woo, but just like multi-dimensional conceptually.
Yeah.
And so I think really what you're saying is if I can get myself to a place where I am not threatened, then I could probably go communicate with that person strike up a conversation and see what information I can glean to take it back into my own world and see what I can do. That is very difficult to do if you are wrought with insecurity. And insecurity is a phenomenal tool of your survival system. And if you don't learn to overcome it using the rapid enlightenment process, it's likely that insecurity will be running the show for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah. I really want to get into this rapid alignment process, so I'm going to run through some of these questions. What's something you think everyone should experience at least once?
Oh, wow. I think that the most powerful thing that I have ever experienced in my entire life was the first time that my mind went completely quiet.
Yeah.
Like when it went completely quiet, first of all, it was also like this joy and this ecstasy and this positive energy just like explodes inside of you. At least it did in me, and my clients report something similar. There's like such a deep, profound sense of satisfaction and love for everyone and everything in that moment that you feel like you could do anything. It's like your level of optimism goes ballistic. And suddenly you're like, wait a second. Like I tell my clients when they come to my events, it's like, ho, don't make too many decisions right now, because your level of optimism is so high that when you get back home, you start like blowing everything up. And what I want you to do is take that level of optimism that happens when you go into this quiet mind state. And I want you to go and I want you to examine. I want you to observe. I want you to be rational. I want you to be scientific. I want you to look at your systems, your procedures, your processes, your workflow. I want you to look at your relationships through this new lens of the quiet mind.
Yeah.
And when you do, then you can start to systematically run experiments to make changes to create the results that you want. I would say number one thing that I would want people to experience is a quiet, peaceful mind, because it's ballistic, the joy, the optimism.
I feel like you're telling us drugs right now. I want one. I want it.
Like if you tuned in late, you'd think he was talking about mushrooms for
sure.
Yeah.
No, I love that.
Listen, I've done all the different psychedelics.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've done all of them, actually. I've done a lot. I was looking for God in all the wrong places, I'll tell you that much. It turns out the psychedelic experience is extremely valuable and very therapeutic. It creates permanent changes because of the way it affects your neuroplasticity. But it turns out that a quiet mind, a quiet, peaceful mind, creates a continuous effect. So you continue to have that experience throughout life. You're out on a walk and you're in a state of awe and wonder. You're on a listing presentation, you're looking at the sellers, and you actually experience an overwhelming feeling of love and joy for being in their presence. And when you feel that and you're on a listing presentation, you get the listing.
Yeah.
And I think it's that much more important for realtors or people in the real estate industry, just because, we're known to have whatever the opposite of a quiet mind is, right? Like there's all those memes and Instagram reels about people like that are like, as you're going to bed at night, it's like, did I do the inspection? Did I call that guy back? Did I remember to follow up with that person? Did I go on the appointment? Did I write that offer?
Yep.
That much more difficult for, and probably anybody in any sort of sales business to.
Maybe not sales as much as it is like if we just look at what a real estate agent is doing, they are a solopreneur.
Yeah.
And when you're a solopreneur, you have a ton of details. And if you have an insane, crazy mind, the details are overwhelming. And if you can learn to get your mind to go quiet, then you can activate a rational and systematic approach to your process. For me, I have to write everything down because when my mind went quiet, the drunk monkey stopped needling me all the time. Like, you're not doing this. And what about this? And what about that? What about this? What about that? Like all of that went away.
Yeah.
And so that's a useful thing to like, what about this? What about that? What about that? So now that's very useful. So then what you're driven to do in your quiet, enlightened state is to create a systematic approach. And what's so cool about a systematic approach is that it's highly customizable and tweakable, and you can measure and monitor it, which means you can dramatically improve it And so when your mind goes quiet, you get more systematic. When you get more systematic, you can improve your efficiency. This is why in my training, I tell people, we're going to double, we're going to triple, we're going to quadruple your number of listings and sales over the next 90 to 120 days. And people are like, Matthew, that's complete BS. And I'm like, okay, I mean, you can think that.
Yeah.
But I know with certainty, if I get your mind to go quiet, you're going to think about things more rationally, and you're going to realize how dumb you are.
Yeah.
And be like, why am I doing these 11 stupid things? This is so dumb. But those 11 stupid things, when your mind is like, it's like, I'm doing those out of habit.
Yeah.
Because like, that's how I started. I just like, somebody told me to do it that way. So now I do it that way. So now I'm doing it that way. It doesn't work very well. It makes me agitated, but I have to do it that way because I don't know any other way to do it. And I don't have any time. I have no white space. I can't think. I'm thinking too much. What am I going to do? Did I get the inspection done? You know, is that my mom?
Squirrel.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I love that. And just to tie this into creating sales velocity, you talk about in the beginning coming from a place of contribution, not focusing on the sale, coming from a place of awareness of others, not about being self-absorbed. So it's all those things that you need to do to become an attraction tool so that the client feels like you're actually vested in them and their interests and not just some person trying to make a sale. Just to ask, because I'm gonna die to know, to get into that state, does the rapid alignment process help you get into that state of a quiet mind?
The rapid alignment process helps you to get into a state of contributing to other people, as well as protecting your boundaries. And many, many people who are spiritually aware or conscious types or positivity types, they actually are really able and capable of being in a contributive state. But their boundary protecting oftentimes doesn't really kick in. They either end up getting mad at people or they end up being taken advantage of.
Yeah, and mad at themselves.
Like do things that they don't want to do. The rapid alignment process, what you're going to do is you're going to start with awareness. You're going to begin with that you have a drunk monkey in your head. It does 12 things consistently. And if you can spot those 12 things, then you don't have to buy into them. Those 12 things are being driven by 10 unconscious hidden motives to survive. They're hidden from your view, but they're there, they're running. If you can spot them with awareness, that's a practice that we do in our method. If you can spot them, you can actually deactivate the drunk monkey. It's the coolest thing. Then what do you do? Like if your mind's not talking, what do you do? Well, then you practice something called enlightened perspectives. Enlightened perspectives are perspectives that are assume that all is well, which is crazy, right? It's like we don't ever think that all is well. We think that everything must change all the time. So an enlightened perspective assumes that all is well, and it does this very interesting thing. It makes your body physiologically strong. So you become strong, you know all is well, which is a fearless state, and you're empowered and strong. And then the last thing you do is you work on recontextualization. So let's say you're with a buyer, and that buyer is showing signs of fear. And how their fear is showing up is that they're being greedy and they're being jerky and they're wanting to lowball people and they're being unreasonable and they don't want to give in on stuff. Well, recontextualization helps you to create a context on the fly that assumes all is well and makes you empowered. And when you assume that all is well and you're empowered, you become detached. When you become detached, you can be a contribution. You can connect deeply with people. You're not protecting yourself from them. You're not strategizing on how you're going to manipulate them. Instead, you're right there in the present moment. And when you're in the present moment with people, their fear disappears. And when their fear disappears, they become rational and reasonable human beings. It's nuts. How powerful it is. This is why when people follow the process in business, this is just why they have like a doubling of their transactions, but a massive reduction in time. They just become incredibly efficient because who they're being is so powerful.
That's great.
I want to go in deeper on this. As you were saying that, I just saw myself, I booked an appointment recently and it wasn't even an appointment. It was like a consultation and this lady was just so nice. I didn't even do a pre-qual, nothing. I just went there to see how I could help her. In the beginning, I had no agenda. I was just like, she just sounded really sweet. Want to see how I can help. And then all of a sudden it was like I zoomed in. It was just like, vroom. I was like fully present in what she was going through. And at the end of the conversation, she was just like, okay, where's the paperwork? I'm like, what? So I'm like, 1 second. thank God I had the blank ones. I'm like, all right, let me just handwrite this the old fashioned way.
Yeah.
And then she like literally just volunteered to sign. I was just very, very present in there, but there was no agenda. There was no flow. I was just literally trying to solve the problem for her. If you could do that, imagine you could kind of conjure that in every kind of situation you're going in. That would be like a massive game changer.
Well, it's because you figured out what the problem was and you came from a place of contribution. What was her problem?
Well, her problem was that she lives in California and all her doctors are in California. And she's like, I need to really like figure out what I need to do to get this property ready to get sold. I need to do this, that. She was a high expressive. She wouldn't stop talking. So I was just like, maybe let's meet in person. Let's just see what you're actually going through. Let's see what vendors you actually need so we can help you with this process. In my mind, I'm like, if I do that, the listing's guaranteed mine. I didn't think she was going to sign on spot. So I just went there to see what I can actually help with. Yeah.
Matthew, you remember Kathy Anderson back in the day?
Of course, I love Kathy Anderson.
Yeah. Kathy was one of my favorite coaches, if not my favorite coach. She would always say, would it be helpful if, would it be helpful if, would it be helpful if? And when you're meeting with a lot of these sellers and you're, of course, coming from a place of contribution, you can't go wrong saying that over and over again. Would it be helpful if I introduce you to some of my vendors? Would it be helpful if, I were to take this off your plate? Or would it be helpful if, we can figure out the comparables right now?
And I think that we could say that you get the body in motion and the mind will follow. And would it be helpful if, right? So if we have some languaging that is empowering and creates that contribution kind of mindset, it's likely that it will pull you into it. But in the end, the hidden motives to survive are going to generally make you fearful, attached, pride-filled, estimating that things aren't going to go your way and therefore creating behavior that is manipulative. And so even if you have the language, you'll use the language, but who you're being speaks so loudly that the language doesn't impact. Yeah. And the cool thing about changing who you're being first is that you can be terrible at language. I will say Thatch Wynn is one of my longtime favorite clients. And he's become a leader in his own right. And he is absolutely horrific at speaking English.
He's a gangster, but I love him. Yeah.
I was thinking this while you were saying this. Yeah.
Yep. Thatch Wynn's one of my favorite people on earth. And I will say that who he's being is so much more powerful than what he is saying.
Yeah.
And the results that it produces are extraordinary. They're exceptional.
Yeah.
And Thatch has done the work. Thatch has worked diligently to master the Rapid Enlightenment process and apply it in his own life. Then in that more quiet, peaceful state, he's then able to really work on, well, what are the nuts and bolts of my system and my process and my procedure and my marketing? And how do I do that in a way where I'm not in a state of resistance, I'm in a state of joy? When I say live the good life without the grind, I really mean it. Yeah. You're going to do the same stuff. There's certain things that are required to be an effective, profitable real estate agent. The grind is your resistance to the activity. And if you don't have any resistance, now all of a sudden you can do those activities joyfully, gleefully.
Yeah. The one thing that becomes, like, even with NLP too, if you think about it, like John Grinder and Richard Bandler, they just noticed a pattern of what really persuasive people do, and then they documented it. Just because you copy that method doesn't mean that you're embodying that full essence of actually being persuasive. You're manipulating yourself to kind of act in a way, but then it can be felt. It's not going to be 100% effective as being in the same state.
I think the Thatch example is hit the nail on the head because it's not about what you say.
Another great example of that is Greg Harrelson. And, Greg is one of those people, we follow him. We do what he asks us to do because of who he is as a person.
Yeah.
And who he is as a person is a set of commitments. He has a set of commitments to a way of being and a way of operating. And Greg has done tremendous amount of work to get his mind to not be so crazy.
Yeah.
So that he can be in the present moment and really do the thing that calls to him, which is to support agents in doing well.
Yeah. So let's say someone's going into an appointment and it's the biggest commission they'll ever get kind of situation. What would be some action steps for them not to be in a state of fear, a state of desperation, or just coming off as not deserving maybe of
commission breath?
Yeah.
Yes, commission breath is real.
It is.
I think we should go rapid alignment process, and then I think we should do creating sales velocity. We should do like quiet mind, epic life, creating sales velocity.
Yep.
So the quiet mind, epic life process, you would start by identifying what you're attached to. So attachment is an exaggerated fear of losing an imaginary benefit. You have to start by recognizing, okay, I have invented a reality. I've invented a future based on me getting this commission. And now what's happened is the drunk monkey has said, I really want that future, and I'm afraid I'm not going to get it. Except nothing has happened yet. I'm just driving over to the listing presentation.
Yeah.
So I'm on my way to the listing presentation, and here's the drunk monkey. You're going to lose that, and then here are the 11 benefits you're going to lose. You won't get that, you're not going to do this, and you're going to do this, and you're like going into a state of fear and angst and anger, and you're getting anxious, and now you're going to go in and you're nervous. All the things that we don't want to have happen. Yeah. So you've got to identify the exaggerated benefit. That's number one. Number two, you then have to figure out what is the outcome without the exaggeration. Then number three is you have to ask yourself, am I willing to lose that benefit? Like if I lose that benefit, what is the actual thing that will occur? And what you discover is nothing.
Right.
I will then go on the next listing presentation.
You lost something that you didn't have anyway.
There was nothing there.
Yeah.
Right.
Then the next thing you do is you say, well, then if I'm willing to lose this thing that actually isn't of that great a consequence, what am I committed to? So you have to follow those 4 steps. That's from the rapid alignment process. But let's go over to something that they could also do very tactically when they're on the presentation. When you're on the presentation, you want to activate something that puts you into the present moment. And the fastest way to get in the present moment with human beings is to mimic, mirror, and match them. So you sit the way that they sit.
Yeah.
You admire how they're sitting. You admire the movement that they have. You admire their facial expressions. And then you actually work to adopt it. Because when you work to adopt what they're doing, you're basically saying to them, like, no, your way is good. I like who you are. I like the style that you have. And so you mimic their facial expressions, the way that they're sitting. You adjust your speed to communicate the way that they are communicating. If you can figure out how to say words the same way that they say them, then you do that. And essentially what you're telling them is like, I dig your stuff. I dig the way you do it.
Yeah.
And you honor them. Now, when you do that, you go into the present moment. You lose yourself. And it's so delicious. That comes from chapter 6 of Creating Sales Velocity.
Harmonize and eliminate resistance.
Yep. And then the releasing attachment is in the back of the book for Quiet Mind, Epic Life.
You know what this made me think of is that a lot of times, because of course we're relating this to the real estate business and commissions, a lot of times people will struggle with those appointments because they're so concerned about the commission. And don't get me wrong, I love to get paid, but a lot of times for me, it was just the outcome was just a positive outcome that I was so worried about just getting it signed, not necessarily about how much money I was going to make. It was like do or die. And, you know, I don't know. When we think about this topic, you sort of think, oh, well, it has to be about the money. You were so focused on the money and the commission. And I truly wasn't, because I know I've talked to you about this sometimes.
Well, it's 200,000 or 2 million. Yeah.
Sometimes I've looked up and I've chased a lead for 2 months. And then I realized that it was a $200,000 sale price. And I really should have just probably tossed the lead weeks ago.
Yeah.
But my competitive nature just kept saying, follow up, follow up, follow up. And, you know, so sometimes it's not always about the dollars. It is about the outcome, like you said.
When you're looking through creating sales velocity, it's like a bunch of principles. And I feel like the Quiet Mind, Epic Life is like the B. Like, you know, the part of the B, do you have? It's like what you're becoming. And when you become that, it's essentially those principles in creating sales velocity become kind of like a part of you, which is like, that reflection just came true as I'm looking at the next question, which I know we deviated off of, but it's such, the rapid alignment process is so cool. May I ask the one that I think is the most interesting on this?
This is your show, man.
This came from Aaron Visco. He said, what can someone do to find their calling/life's purpose?
Oh, I love that. So what can someone do to find their calling/life's purpose? It is to acknowledge that there is no calling and there is no life purpose.
That's a wrap. You got it.
You start there.
Yeah.
And there is no calling in life purpose because that's just a contextual framework. That's just a perspective. That's an opinion that you have. And the question becomes, what do I really think that my calling or my life purpose will get me? And the answer is it'll get you an experience. And what I've found over the years is that if I help people to identify what I call the most cherished experience, the experience that you think your goals and your dreams and your purpose and all of that is going to give you, if you can identify what that experience is, you can actually have that experience right now. No goal required, no accomplishment required, no success required. That if you can right now get connected to that experience, let's say it's joy, or maybe it's peace or fun or flow or grace or ease or adventure. I don't know what it is, but some like really top level experience that you want. If you can get connected to that now, your ability to perform goes exponential. It goes exponential. Like you will have so much productivity because you're having the experience right now that you think living the dream, living the, life's purpose is going to give me. I do this very interesting process, and it's been a part of my research that I've done for the last 30 years, and it's called applied kinesiology. It's more commonly known as muscle testing. And I've tested literally thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of statements, as well as on hundreds of people's bodies. And it essentially is testing, when you make a statement, does that cause the person's muscles to be strong, or does that cause the person's muscles to be weak? And it turns out that anytime you use the word like the purpose of life is, or my purpose is, whatever you put after that, it'll make you go weak. Like whatever, the only thing that makes you go strong is to have an experience. I find that to be very liberating, because there are times in which I am having experiences that I would prefer not to have. And I'm able to connect with this idea like, oh, wow, the purpose of life is to experience. It's not a truth. Actually, the purpose of life is unfigure-outable. It's not something that can be scientifically proven. And yet every single person has some arbitrary belief about what it is. The question is that I put to the test, and this is something that I discuss in chapter 9 of my book, Quiet Mind, Epic Life, is, well, if there are all of these dogmatic ways of thinking about the world, they're not true, they're not false. They're not real, they're not unreal, they're unprovable, but people believe things anyway. Is there something that we could do to at least put a metric to it? And my answer was, yeah, actually, you can test to see, does it make the body strong? Because what I've found, guys, is that like when you're strong, it's easy to be happy. When you're strong, you're inspired. When you're strong, you feel safe. When you're strong, there's no need for the mind to talk. And so if you can find ways of thinking about life that make you physiologically strong, what I've found over the years is that it makes your mind quiet. Then you connect with inspiration, empowerment, rational thinking, problem solving. I mean, just like all your greatest resources come from that.
Yeah,
that's great.
And one of the things that you can do to really get connected is to figure out what your most cherished experience is. In fact, I have a YouTube video that people can track down. It's called the Enlightened Goal Setting Workshop. And in that YouTube video, I take you through a full process of getting connected to your most cherished experience and then setting your goals based on that experience. Check it out.
I love that. Just to get some context into the, what was the name of the study again? The
Applied kinesiology.
Applied kinesiology. So remember when we were in Florida and then they put you up and then they told you to put your hand out and to make a statement and then she would push down on your hand?
I do.
So that's what it is.
Yeah.
So, and then there's a book called Power versus Force. They talk about it in like different ways to see if something's true or false in certain ways. I used to go to the Barnes and Nobles. Matthew, you'd find this funny. I would hold the book to my chest, and whoever I'm with, I'm like, "Can you just push my hand down real quick?" And it was so cool because you can't control it. It's interesting. But you said the most cherished experience, and you could almost experience it without having to have it accomplished. Is there?
Not almost.
You can.
Not almost.
Sorry.
You can 100% experience your most cherished experience without any goal achieved. And if you go to my YouTube video, I'll take you through the process.
I love that. All right. We are definitely doing
We'll
that.
definitely link it below.
Yeah. The next one, I think this is the last question that's on there. What is something that motivates you now?
Nothing really. I would say I'm unmotivated.
You're like, okay.
Yeah, I would say I'm unmotivated. I seek to get inspired. And what I found is that motivation is like a fool's errand. What I found is that motivation, if you look up the dictionary, the dictionary definition of motivation is provided with a motive for action. And if you need to be provided with a motive for action, then you don't want to take the action.
Fair.
And therefore, you're operating out of some sort of guilt, obligation, or illogical rules. It's likely you're taking the action out of some kind of self-hatred or self-loathing, or greed or pride, or illogical rules. Those are all hidden motives to survive. If you're unable to distinguish the hidden motives to survive, then you're just a donkey with a big carrot out here, and you're like constantly chasing it, and you never experience peace. You're never satisfied. You're never fulfilled. You will always feel like you're not there yet. But if you start to get connected to inspiration, you'll actually feel fulfilled and satisfied being incomplete, not there yet, not having achieved the goal yet. It's rad. It's 100% recommended. I would give up on motivation completely, and I would start working on inspiration. And I just want you to know, like, that doesn't make sense to like 90% of your viewers right now are just like, that makes no sense. But 10% of your viewers are people who they're more connected to the thriving part of humanity.
Yeah.
And those who are connected to that thriving part, like, this makes complete sense. Driving yourself to take action so you can accomplish something to hopefully feel something later is insane.
Yeah.
Instead, feel the thing that you want to feel now, get connected to the oneness that all is well right now. All is well. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. It's all perfect exactly as it is. And I'm a creative being, and my goals are coming through me, and I can't help it. My goals are an expression of the environment. I am the environment. The environment is expressing itself through me. Like, when I get connected to that, I just want to do stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like you're pushing. It's almost like you're being pulled. Matthew, 2 more questions for you, if I may. So we're going through the market shift that we have right now, and there's a lot of people who will be bogged down, be in a negative mindset, think that they're basically creating their own resistance more than ever before.
Sure.
Yep.
What are the promises that they would, or what were some of the outcomes that they would get by experiencing a quiet mind and going through like a rapid alignment process with you?
Well, there's tons of outcomes, but can we just talk about how to not get caught up first?
Let's do that.
I'm going to recommend that you go on a 30-day opinion diet. This is something that I did a TED Talk on, so you can check out my TED Talk. Maybe we can link to that also.
Yes.
The 30-day opinion diet. What you want to do is give yourself a reprieve from the hallucinations that you're having about how the world is going to go. And you want to begin to acknowledge and admit that you're not psychic, that you don't know what's going to happen, and that you experience something that we all experience, and that is negativity bias. And negativity bias is an exceptional, phenomenal survival trait. It's just one that is not serving you in this moment. And so a tactic that you can take on is giving up your opinions about everything for the next 30 days. Now, you can go to my site also, MatthewFerry.com, and I have a 30-day opinion diet free manual that you can download, and then you can just like go along with me and practice the process. I highly recommend that. But once you do that, if we look at the world today, we have interest rate hikes that have basically made it really, really unsavory for most people to sell. We have commissions under threat. We don't know exactly what's going to happen just yet. It's not decided, but it doesn't look good. It almost, to me, it feels like actually we're going 50 years backwards. That's what it feels like to me, because essentially what the consumer is saying is, I know all of you realtors used to collaborate, but I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't want you collaborating. It's more complex than that, but it has that quality.
Yeah.
And so it's going to create a different level of competition, much less collaboration. Sellers are going to have a really challenging time. Buyers are going to really have a challenging time. And many, many realtors are no longer going to be realtors.
Yeah.
Like hundreds of thousands of them.
Yeah.
So like there's real stuff that's going on. And yet we don't know what's going to happen. And what we do know is that if you are creative, resourceful, if you have ingenuity, if you're optimistic, if you're solution oriented, if you're someone who is willing to experiment, do something different, think about the world in different ways. If you are all of that, this is going to be one of the most opportunistic times of your entire life. Like you as a real estate agent could do hundreds of deals a year because so many other people are impeded by their inability to be flexible, have ingenuity, do different things, be creative, be resourceful, and be experimental.
Well said.
Therefore, if you will take on an opinion diet, you'll start to experience peace. You'll start to trust that all is well in the world, that you're going to be okay, that everything's going to be okay. You'll start to feel more joy and fun and certainty and laughter. And when you get into that state and you begin to work on your business with diligence and chutzpah, like if you do my brother's system, you'll do it way better. If you do my father's system, you'll do it way better. If you follow the EXP system, you'll do it way better. You'll just do it better because of who you're being.
Yeah. Amen. I love that one.
Diets haven't really worked for me in the past. Is there a pill you can take?
It sounds very, very
Makes-
difficult, but I'm curious to see how, because everything we're trying to be changed to have, like, realtors are trying to be problem solvers in every kind of situation, but having an opinion sometimes makes it more complex.
Yeah.
Instead of it just like letting it be and then kind of going
Well,
through.
there are times in which giving your opinion is appropriate because someone has asked you for your opinion or they're paying you for your opinion.
Yep.
But I would say, I'm going to invent a stat, but 98% of the time, your opinion is creating conflict, strife, suffering, agitation, and negativity.
Yep.
So it's highly recommended to give up opinionation in general.
Yeah.
Your dad used to say is, would you rather be right or would you rather be rich?
Yeah. Well, that's like the marriage thing. Would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? So that's where he brought it up. All right. So the next one, feeling good is the highest goal. What can someone who's listening to this, what can they do to feel good? And that, compass of feeling can be focused on the good when things are not.
Feeling good is the highest goal. There are a couple of ways to get there. The first one that I would recommend is that you implement your meds, that you take your meds every single day. Meditation, exercise, diet, and sleep. 40% of what you're feeling is going to be like what you eat.
Right.
And so finding the way to eat for you that brings the brain power, the optimism, the energy, the vitality, it's different for everybody. There's no one way for any human being. But meditation is going to calm the nervous system and improve your neuroplasticity. Your diet is going to improve your ability to process what you're experiencing. If you haven't watched a TED Talk on sleep, like Sleep is Your Superpower, 100% watch that. One of the most important things that you can do. So meditation, exercise, diet, and sleep. That's number one. Then number two, I would ravenously implement the 4 pillars of the Rapid Enlightenment Process. I would be diligent about identifying and transcending the 12 unconscious reflexes of the drunk monkey, because the drunk monkey is going to suck your energy out of you. Then I would work to deactivate the drunk monkey by becoming aware of the 10 hidden motives. Step one is I want to get the drunk monk. I want to understand what the drunk monkey's doing. That's step one. Step two is how do I get the drunk monkey to stop talking altogether?
Yeah.
That is the awareness of the hidden motives. Then step three, I would start connecting with the enlightened perspectives. I would begin to connect with perspectives that assume all is well, and they make you physiologically strong. And then number four, which is probably a lifelong practice, is that I would practice recontextualization, creating contextual frameworks that intentionally imply that all is well in the world and that they make you physiologically strong. They empower you. If you do those four things on a regular basis, you will feel so good.
Follow-up question to the last one. I feel like you're about to pee your pants.
I'm good here.
His leg shakes when he has to pee. Meditation. I'm sorry.
It sounds like something a girlfriend would say. Like,
I know you too well. I'm sorry. The meditation. What kind of meditation would you recommend?
I would say that the first meditation that I would do if I'm not a meditator is I would do a very simple meditation, a 1-minute meditation. I would lower the bar so low it's impossible not to do.
Yep.
And that is simply to close your eyes and take 3 long, slow, deep breaths. And at the end of those 3 long, slow, deep breaths, declare yourself complete. And then if you feel like going farther, then go. Then go farther. Go longer. Take more deep breaths. I would start there. Then the other thing that I would recommend you do is you just track down the meditations that I've created on YouTube, or you can actually go to my site. I have you can download a bunch of my meditations as well. My goal with meditation is to make it fun. To me, if meditation isn't fun, you're probably not going to do it.
yeah.
And so my meditations are like super entertaining and crazy. And yet your mind goes quiet and you feel amazing afterwards.
I love that. Well, Matthew, you are absolutely incredible. We love having you on. This is the amount of value you bring in every kind of conversation. It's awesome. So I'm grateful to have you on deeply, and thank you. What's something that you can leave the audience with?
If you want to take more listings and get more buyers to say yes, then practice total and complete acceptance of all people in all situations, including yourself. And when you do that, you will go into a resistance-free state. People will see that you appreciate who they are. And when they see that you appreciate who they are, they'll be much more collaborative and responsive to what you're saying.
I love it. I will just say this much. There was one appointment that I was on and I realized I was rambling, and then I remembered what you were saying. You'll start rambling when you're in a resistant state, and that the person's not going to even understand what you're saying. So I literally had to apologize to them. I was like, you know what, guys, I'm sorry. Let me just take a step back. And I was just like, thank you. All right. And what's the best way for someone to reach out and collaborate?
They would like to track me down. They can go to my website, MatthewFerry.com, and that's 2 T's and 2 R's.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Matthew, always an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, guys.